Oh yeah.
We wait till we have enough to do something, but then a lot of times after we air one investigation, your phone blows up. People have, suddenly people are like, hey, I know this, and they'll say something. Then you got to file reports, our open records to get.
And you take those calls or emails. People
Yes, I do. Yes,
and you
it's so helpful. It really is. I mean, like, I do have to, just because someone tips us off, it doesn't mean it's a story. You have to background the person. Well, not always but like you gotta see if there's anything to it, and you have to have proof about it.
Local Matters family, we have a very special treat today, and that is the presence of Miss Liz Owens. She is an investigative reporter with the I team at WRDW. She's been in our community for a while, and we're going to let her explain how long she's been here and give us a little background information on her personally. But we're going to explore the topic of investigative reporting because she has become a specialist at that, and we just want to reveal how that whole process takes place. How you doing today, Liz?
I am good. Thank you so much for having me on here. And my kid may pop in. I'm working from home today, so
No problem. I get it. We are doing life these days.
I know, right?
So you're with WRDW. Tell me how long you've been there.
Oh gosh, so altogether it's been about a decade. I've been here the last like 8 years with the entire family, but I had previously worked here for 2 years. And during that time period, got married, pregnant, and then I took 2 years off to stay at home with my child. And I was doing like a commute from Greenville. That was where I last worked.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
so altogether 10 years.
Like 10 years. And where are you from originally?
So I was born in Miami, my dad's first generation, but I grew up in Noonan, Georgia, so Coweta County. So I'm a Georgia girl.
Okay. All right. And tell me, what preparation does one go through to become a journalist?
Oh my gosh, I don't know if there is any. No, so I went to Georgia State, so got a degree in journalism, specifically broadcasting. I always enjoyed writing, and I thought I would. Um, I wanted to work for a newspaper. My grammar's not like the best in the world, and I interned up at the state capitol for Georgia Public Television, or broadcasting now, for a show called Lawmakers. And I just was noticing, like, like, man, the camera, like, you can write and write well, but man, really hearing from somebody and showing people uh the pictures, the video, and hearing from someone is like so impactful. So that's what made me want to go into that. But I did an internship, and it requires, like, so the first half of my career I was like your normal, what they call general assignment reporter, but worked in my first job out of school was in Greensboro, North Carolina. And then I went to Dayton, Ohio, then Greenville, and all of those were general assignments. So I was the reporter. You wake up that morning, you come up with your story idea, or you respond to breaking news. So fire over here or this over there. And after doing it for about 10 years, I was really, maybe 8 years, but it just wasn't feeding my soul. And it's not why I got into journalism. I had no desire to anchor, um, because I would always have more questions about something I responded to, but you're under a deadline. Like, I got to be on at, 5, I got to be on at 5:30, I got to be on at 6. And so I really want to learn investigative journalism. So I dropped down in markets, came here when there was an opening, and I've been here ever since. So I have a really incredible boss that really encourages and investigative journalism, and like, okay, if that's happening, why is that happening? Who's in charge of it? Is there any enforcement? Who's in charge of that? Who's above them? So, and it is definitely a learning process. Like, one of the biggest challenges whenever I'm investigating something, if it's something I've, like, an industry or a topic I've never looked into before, I have to become an expert in it. So it's like a lot of reading of the law, regulations, talking to sources or someone like, hey, break this down. I mean, I don't understand this at all. I don't know a thing about environmental whatever. but I have to really learn a topic to be able to ask the right questions to see if is somebody is there a wrongdoing here, or is there just a loophole in the system, or why is this happening? You don't know unless you like know that industry. So that's like a huge time consuming part. But I love to learn, and it's also one of my favorite parts of the job.
Okay, awesome. It's interesting you mentioned why being a general assignment reporter was not for you years ago, and we're talking when I was in graduate school. I knew I was in public policy school at the time, and but I wasn't quite so, do I really want to go into government work or do I want to do something different? So I was doing an internship in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, which is where Charlotte
Yeah.
is located, and I was talking to our public information director at that time. And I said, I kind of think I like journalism. I'm not sure.
Oh.
Oh, I can arrange for you to spend a day in a newsroom so you can get a feel for what it is.
Were you
I,
traumatized?
yes, I spent that morning with a reporter that was doing just what you described, scrambling around trying to make a story almost out of nothing,
Yeah.
and oh, I got to get this in. I got to get it in about the deadline. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that.
No. But really, I remember the deciding thing, and this obviously it didn't happen here, but I had a producer. It was this kid that had wandered outside, like a toddler, out the back door and drowned in the pool. And producer's like, you need to, at least knock on the door, see if the mama talk. And the mom had just had a baby, so she fell asleep with the baby. Toddler wanders out, complete accident. And I'm supposed to knock on the door and say, "Hey, how do you feel? Your kid just drowned." I mean, like,
Yeah,
but I didn't get into journalism to do that. I got into journalism because I truly believe that it can make positive change in a community. And I'm like, this does not feel like that. So I am very fortunate to have found my niche and something that feeds my soul. And I feel like it can create change, and to have a station that actually encourages it, because it is not a lot of stations can afford to invest in it.
right, exactly. And as you say that, I want to segue into the thing that triggered me to invite you to the show, and that is the series of reports that you've done related to the death of Tyrique Robinson. Everybody in our local community knows. People outside the Augusta area may not know, but Mr. Robinson was the youngest person to ever be elected to the school board in Richmond County. He was looking forward to starting his term. Then some revelations came out about some financial dealings he had with someone that he considered to be his mentor. And then a short time later, he's dead. So you've done a few stories on this. Is it three or four now?
I think there's been a total of four, and I'm still following up on some things, but yeah, it's it is a haunting investigation for me. Like, and I think it's because, I always go into something with like a question, like, how did this happen? Why did this happen? I still don't have those answers. And even though there's so many questions out there and things that just don't make sense or add up, um, I feel like I'm missing a puzzle piece and quite can't put it all together. But it's a very, very sad story. It's sad for the community, and it's very sad for the family.
It is. And I guess the first question, just how do you all get started? I am happy that you all have conducted
Mhm.
these investigations. It has been very revealing for a lot of people who are watching. And it's one of those things where, if I didn't see it first, it's almost assured that a friend will share a link with me to the story because, did you see this, sort of thing. And I went back and watched all of it. I've shared some of the segments with others as well, just so they understand at least what you've been able to uncover. How did you all decide to get into this? Was it a tip from somebody else? Did you all just sort of look at it? I mean, how are decisions made about what things that you will investigate?
Um, well, the I team, we have a lot of control over our own investigations. And the process of, sometimes we get tips. Sometimes, I'm a big data geek, so sometimes I'll find stories in data. And a lot of it is just like questions. For me, like half my stories are just curiosity. Like, this doesn't make sense. They're saying this, but I know this. Or why am I seeing, families outside the homeless shelter and at school and the kids aren't being picked up from school, or, you know, that sort of thing. In this case, what didn't make sense to me is Tyrique's mentor. I had a relationship with her over the pandemic because I was covering nursing homes and all these COVID deaths, and the state, was very like tight-lipped about it. And she's one of the, so many nursing homes are owned by like these giant corporations, and just give you, these PR answers. And Melissa was very helpful during that time period, kind of working with me to let me know what's going on in the nursing homes as far as like visitation and things like that. But I had reached out to her, I think it was 2020, and she had just lost her husband. She was devastated. I can't talk. And I had not heard from her in a year. So this is what made me like question things, is the timing of, she had sent me this text saying, "Hey, Liz, I got a story about, a newly elected politician. I forgot the wording in it. He's been stealing." And I'm like, what? So this is like on a Friday. So I call her, I talk to her, and I'm like, "Have you gone to the police? Do you have a report?" And she's like, "Not yet. I'm getting ready to go out of town, but as soon as I get back in town, I'm going to go to the police." Well, in the meantime, so I told my boss, "Hey, this may be coming down. I'm holding off because even if someone's elected, so it's hard to sue journalists, or anybody really for libel if you're a public official. But we don't, and I don't, I mean, unless I have like proof, like, okay, she filed a report, so now police are looking into it. That is enough for me to do a story on it. Like, I want to look into this. But I was waiting for her to get that report. Well, in the meantime, another media outlet had done a story about it. And then Tyrique, defended himself on a, radio show. Um, and then he's dead. And I, I just thought, though, I don't know, like, but I guess it was just the timing of everything just made me more curious about it all. And I just did the initial report, but I had to wait on when the case file closed, which was in January. I asked for like everything I could possibly think of. And like one of the biggest things, and I mean, you don't have to be an investigative reporter or just a regular journalist. Any citizen should really understand open records laws. It's something I'm trying to teach my 10-year-old. Like, I'm planning to take her to the courthouse today too with me. But like, what your rights are as a citizen to get public information. But that's where I get, that is the base, that and data are the base, the proof of any investigation. If I don't have that, a lot of things it's just hearsay. And like, even though I may firmly believe this isn't right, and or what someone's telling me or tipping me off, if I don't have proof or something to back it up, then it's not an investigation. So I asked for, under open records, like the case file, all the body cam, the 911 call, traffic between officers, emails that if anything involved him when he, like, that falls under freedom of information. And it took me a while to go through it. I mean, it's a lot, and I've done this before with other investigations, but that's when, watching everything, a lot of things just didn't seem to add up. So what I'm seeing on the video, on the body cam, doesn't add up with what I'm seeing in the report, when it was finished. And then once I looked at all that, I finally was able to meet with the family. Family, it takes a long time sometimes to gain the trust of a family who is grieving, who is hurt, and like, a lot of times big bad journalists, but they're not required. We're not actually cops, so no one has to talk to us. But uh, I've had multiple meetings with the family and just talking with them, getting to know them. Um, And even like, I mean, I do my due diligence. I mean, in the beginning, I'm looking at every family member like, everybody, my boss always says, like, you even question your own mom when she says when she loves you. But it is true. You just look at everybody, and I'm not looking for a bad guy, but just trying to make sense of it all. But it just, none of it makes sense, especially once I started getting, the family was able to get his cell phone back, was able to upload some texts, some pictures, and his laptop. And that's probably the part that I'm like, what was going on here? I do not understand it. Like, I really don't. But that's kind of the process of everything. Is it's all these open records, you get everything. It's talking with people that are the closest to, um, and in this case, it's, about an individual and like how he died and what was happening before he died. And and it's just like, everybody, anything I can think of, I look into it.
Thanks for that. If you had to estimate the number of hours that you have spent researching, interviewing people, looking at anything you can get your hands on, I mean, how many, can you even estimate how many hours that's been?
I have no idea. There's been a couple stories like this. I mean, like, it's weeks of going through. I mean, you think about it, body cam video, you're looking at everything, logging it, going back and you don't hear it right. Like, hey, ask your photog, what did they say here? I mean, it's hour. I mean, I have no idea. It takes a while. I mean, some of my investigations have, take months. Um, I think the longest one has been maybe a year. Some of that's waiting on documents to come back, but just combing, once you get that back, it just takes forever to comb through everything. And then it's like I write all my questions down. I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense, but is it allowed, or is like what's the regulation, or like what is the normal process? I was saying earlier, like one of the biggest challenges, and I do enjoy it, but is like learning something. But like I really do have to consult with like experts because I went to school for communications. I learned to write. I didn't learn to, be a cop or be a lawyer or about environmental stuff or real estate or anything like that, or like emergency response. So any investigation I do, I try to get with an expert because I have a million questions, and sometimes I feel like I'm reading like Chinese or something. I don't know what it all means. So that was kind of the process too, is, consulting people that, that are other law enforcement. Like, is this normal? Is this how this works? That sort of thing. And a lot of times that information doesn't like always, it's not like always interviews. They're just like my experts to help guide me. Or like, hey, you could always ask for this because this is how this report's worded. It falls under open records. Um, but yeah, and then I have sources as well, like, some of my, uh, the most valuable people to help in investigation are people that you will never see, you will never hear their name. Um, and they kind of, they usually, they can help guide me into to getting information. So, and those are the most like helpful people in something.
Okay. So it takes a lot of money because I noticed in this particular instance, you traveled out of state,
Mhm.
and probably stayed there for a couple of days, to ask around. In fact, I think you went into the police department, or was it the DA's office there? Tell
Oh
me
yeah, I
what.
did both. Yeah, yeah. So that was so bizarre. So it was kind of a weird story how all this happened. So, um, for anyone who hasn't watched the investigations, this young man died. It was ruled a suicide. There's a lot of questions over the investigation, or I've had a lot of questions. There's things that just don't make sense, like no fingerprints on anything, messages missing, like, yeah, I don't know. It's just a lot of things that didn't really add up to me. But what came out after he died is, the same person that, texted me about, these allegations. And again, I don't know if he did anything or didn't, but it was just, it came out right after he was elected and right before he died. But come to find out, there was, pending charges against his mentor, friend. They did have a very close relationship, but but against her um, ex-boyfriend. So Melissa had taken Tyrique to Cherokee to gamble, and her ex-boyfriend had flown up there. And he, in the police report, it says he came to confront Tyrique about, he believed they had a romantic relationship. Ends up being a scuffle, and he's charged with this was new to me, another thing new to me. I've never covered an area that has that's reservation, so like those are completely different laws, rules, all that. But one of the charges they had was like there's a special charge for like assault against a female, and then it was the assault against Tyrique. But I go up there because the family was still pursuing charges. But they told me that the DA had dropped the case, that Melissa recanted her story, said Tyrique was the aggressor. And this is just a timing was strange with all this, but I happened to be going up there for my girlfriend's birthday. And I was like, and driving past, I was like, I need to go and just get those documents. I just want to look at this. And I go into the clerk's office and I'm like, hey, can I, get the reason why this was dropped? I forgot the name of the document. And they're like, oh, it isn't. It's on it literally 2 days later. I think that was a Friday or a Thursday. It was on a Monday, was the hearing. So I was like, what in the world? So I called the family. I'm like, it's on, it's not off. But it really didn't make a difference. The family came up there. They presented some texts, some other things. Because they really wanted this ex-boyfriend to be held accountable, like the charges not to be dropped. And I think it really hurt them that, the original statements were that this ex-boyfriend assaulted um, Tyrique, and now this mentor is saying that it was Tyrique was the aggressor and Tyrique's dead. So, the family's like, really? So, but anyway, yeah, that's kind of how that happened. But when we were up there, like I went to the clerk's office to get the paperwork, and then I was back up there for the hearing. And so we're at the DA's office. The DA's office was really strange about the whole thing. Do not understand that. And Melissa like had a relationship with the DA's office because she had been emailing on behalf of Tyrique about moving the court date. It was originally scheduled when he was alive, like on election day or near election day. Um, and then once he was dead, she recanted his story and filed probate papers here locally. But yeah, that's it was kind of crazy up there. But yeah, my boss, I told her I was like, this is actually going on. So then she's like, yeah, stay up there, we need to cover that.
So you've got natural curiosity, you need a lot of facts, you need some financial resources to pull all of this off,
Yes.
and you need help from people who can give you context and help explain how things are
Yes,
supposed to work.
yes.
So it takes a lot of moving pieces to pull one of these investigative reports together.
Right. And it's a process. I will tell you, um, yeah, back when I was first starting to do this, I have an idea for an investigation. Okay, yeah, let's go and do this. You start getting documents. I will tell you almost more times than not, what I initially think I'm investigating, it will take a turn into another direction. So that's the difference between like investigate. Well, there's a lot of differences, but like, what I was doing before is I'm kind of like just reacting, like, here's what's happening today, guys. This happened, this road shut down, blah, blah, blah. This, I'm looking through things. And so I'm not reporting on it yet. And that's why you'll see our investigations with the I team. It's like in different stages because we'll start like, oh, this is super interesting. Then we find out something else or another document, and it takes a turn this way. So yeah, it's process reporting. It really is. Um, because information comes in at different times. We wait till we have enough to do something, but then a lot of times after we air one investigation, your phone blows up. People have, suddenly people are like, hey, I know this, and they'll say something. Then you got to file reports, our open records to get.
And you take those calls or emails,
Yes,
people,
I do. Yes,
and you,
it's so helpful. It really is. I mean, like, I do have to, just because someone tips us off, it doesn't mean it's a story. You have to background, the person, well, not always back, but like you gotta see if there's anything to it, and you have to have proof about it. But a lot of times, like, I some of the craziest things you would never believe I get a tip about, and then I'm like, okay, well, let me look into this. And then, sure enough, you're like, holy smokes.
Okay. One of the questions that somebody has asked me about this is why do they keep letting it all out in bits and pieces? Why don't they just run one big thing and give us all the facts? Can you explain the answer?
Oh, I wish I could do one big one. All right, so a couple things. As I was saying, it was like it all, it is process reporting. So maybe we do one story and then suddenly someone has information that I didn't know. And now I'm looking into that. Now it's another story. I mean, just like with the Cherokee, Tyrique, like the Cherokee thing, I find out when I'm up there that it's actually going on and like find out more information. Um, so then so it comes it's in real time almost as we get the information. Um, and then the other thing is I'm a local journalist, so our newscasts are 30 minutes long. I think my first Tyreek story was like 10 or 12. You add in commercial breaks. Y'all, I could do a documentary. I mean, some of our stories, Meredith, one of my colleagues on the I team, I mean, she's been working on this horrific investigation involving a death of a mentally ill inmate in Bamberg. And I mean, her piece was probably 10 minutes too, and she has had other ones coming out. We literally don't have the on-air time for it, so that's part of it too. They can get really long. So your normal news story, what I was doing before I became an investigative journalist, your regular, like, here's what's going on today story is maybe a minute 15, a minute 30. I mean, people always like, oh, why do you only cut, you didn't hear the whole interview, like sound bites. Literally, that's all the time we have. We can put stuff on the web, but you have a show that's 30 minutes long. So
Okay. And in this case, you've been working on this now for a long time because I can't remember exactly when he died, but it's been a year, right?
it's been over a year. So yeah,
Over a year.
I yeah, I started covering the the Board of Education election. And I was doing like long interviews with all the candidates probably back in October. Tyreek was not one, but Tyreek did not have any there was no one else running, so the seat was
Right.
his. But uh and I had been doing that because I had already been like looking a lot into the school system here. And I've really, even though like I'm embarrassed to say, I never thought like school board was like that important to vote on. Um, and man, when I look into a school system and then you think of like the trickle down effect of like education and like it is probably, and now I think it's one of the most important things you can vote on in local
Yes.
in a
It
community.
absolutely is.
As a
That's
mother, it really is.
that's
And I feel foolish that I always kind of chalked it up, like whatever, it's not that important. What do they do? They just, but it really, really is. I mean, as I do stories about homeless or foster, as these kids like age out of foster care, whatever, it's like a lot of it starts at such a young age. And that's why, like, having good elected leaders that are helping your children, the kids' future is so important. But anyway, I really embraced doing those interviews, and then it was that because I had that relationship with Melissa. I got that text, and then I was like, that's how I got involved in it. So the first one was like just he died. I got this text. It wasn't like it was just very crazy to me. I had not even met the family or talked to them, and but it was when I got the case file back that I started really digging into it. And then after having forming a relationship with the family, and a lot of times it takes time, and I know it can be intimidating talking to, an investigative journalist, especially if you don't know them and especially if they look different. I mean, I'm like, your typical middle-aged white journalist, covering an area that is a huge minority population. And that's one thing I mean, I totally get it, but it's like, man, I got the same, it takes a while to build those relationships and the trust. And I really appreciate those that have taken their chance with me. because I get like it sounds so cheesy, and I promise that like it is true to my heart. I do what I do, definitely not because I want to be on TV and not because I make millions of dollars. It is because I truly believe in local journalism. I believe it makes a difference, and I've stayed here. I love the community. I'm raising a child here. So I truly do what I do to make a difference and to hopefully, you know, I really try to be as fair, find the truth. I mean, sometimes I don't get everything right away, like information wise, but I do it because I really want to be the voice for the voiceless, to make changes where you see wrongdoing or like there's system failures too, just pointing those out like, hey, we could fix this if it was done a different way. There's a loophole here, and this is how this keeps happening.
Okay. Thank you for all of that because there are two things when you start talking about how investigative reporting can make a difference. Two things came to mind, and I'll invite you to discuss both of them as much as you want to. One is media exists to hold governments accountable, which I think is a good thing. I mean, yeah, I know media exists for other reasons too, because we need news. We need to know what streets closed, and we need to know
Yeah.
what the weather is going to be. And we're interested for entertainment purposes and some of the other things that you all have on a broadcast. But one of the most important functions is to hold organizations accountable. And I have been concerned that newspapers used to play that role and now just really aren't anymore because the readership's not there, therefore the advertising is not there, therefore the
Right.
staffing is not there, and it's like this downward spiral
Yeah.
that it's only the biggest newspapers in the country. It seems to me only the bigger newspapers, like the Atlanta Journal Constitution or New York Times or the Washington Post or somebody, really has the staff resources to do some true investigative reporting, like what you're talking about. So that need and we need organizations to be held accountable. We need
Oh
somebody
yes.
asking questions. So it is a service to us as residents and as taxpayers, and somebody's got to fill the void. The other thing that came to mind, really, in this case, not every case, but in this case, and a lot of them that I think about though, because some of them are consumer oriented. Some of the cases you all do or stories you do are consumer oriented. Does the legislature ever take action on the things that you all find
Yeah.
when you cover those things? And does law enforcement ever take action based upon something they see? I mean, those are the questions that run through my mind when I'm watching the stories that you've done.
Yes. Not always, but yeah, so like one that I was proud to have made a little bit of a difference in is I called this piece 15 Minutes to Die. It's just another story that haunts me because, you know, I'm not a first responder, but we see everything, the stuff we can't show you on TV. And I actually initially started like looking into ambulance response times back when there was the whole debate over the ambulance contract. And I'd asked for all these 911 calls and all these different calls, and this is where something turns into something else. But I listened for 15 minutes as this woman begged for the operator to tell the firefighters outside her door to break the door down so they could save her. She couldn't breathe, and I heard her take her last breath. And it was so horrific and so terrible, and her poor family only heard she had a medical emergency. I mean, they had no idea that for 15 minutes, EMS and firefighters were outside, and the whole reason they didn't go into the house is because there was a policy with the fire department that you had to wait on a police officer or a deputy to arrive before you went into the house. And come to find out, the whole reason that was put in place is because sometimes people, you might accidentally go in the wrong house, or someone plays a joke on someone, you go in it, you break the door down, and you got to pay for the door. But this woman lost her life. I don't know if she could have been saved or not, but like hearing her take her last breath, begging, saying, I can't breathe. I mean, it just gutted me. But the policy, like, it changed. So that was something just here on a local level that I was proud to make a difference with that. I've had other, investigations, like, federal indictments, that happened, a story like on the South Carolina side, uh, um, jail, businesses close. Um, it doesn't always happen, but Meredith's had several as well. A lot of action on the Fort Gordon housing stuff because of her reporting. Sometimes it's not always, um, a person's fault or an agency's fault. Sometimes it's just like no one's asking the questions, and until you bring it to light, or somebody shines something on it, it's not addressed. And that's kind of our job, is like, hey, this happened. Why did this happen? Um, does this policy work, or should there be regulations with this, or uh, you know why does this person keep getting away with this over and over and over again and taking tens of thousands of dollars from people? I mean, it's things like that we look at and ask questions, uh, and sometimes, it does create change. Other times that's probably the most disheartening thing, is like you put all these hours and you're like all passionate about it, and then just like crickets, which is the case of Tyreek, and it's driving me crazy.
Okay. At least as far as we know.
As far as we know, yes, I
That's one
don't
case
know.
too. I mean,
Yeah.
we know that law enforcement many times can be doing something and we just don't know because they can't afford to let folks know what's happening. But it's kind of agonizing, I'm sure, to not know if
Right.
this is going anywhere or not.
Yeah, I definitely have a tendency, it's not always that good for you as a journalist, but I do get a little, you can't help it when you're looking into something so long and in such detail, and you like form relationships with families or friends. I mean, you really get vested in it, and you really want to find answers. I mean, and there's several of these that I've, you know, it, I'll just like be planning in my head, like, what's going on? How do I, why is this way? Like, who do I ask? And yeah.
Okay. Okay. We just got a couple minutes left. Is there anything else that you want to share with our Local Matters family? And first, I also will thank you for having been a part of the Local Matters family. I love that you like to listen to us.
I do. I mean, I'm always looking for so I'm not a local. I've been here 10 years, but to really understand the way the government works here and these different little groups of people and like not voting, I'm like, all right, what's the history of this area? And like, so I'm always looking for a podcast or something to kind of or I read things like, like you had the tiny homes guy on, and that was so informative to me. I mean, I heard about it, I've seen it on paper, but yeah, I thank you for doing what you do, because it's really cool to learn things about Augusta, the organizations, and some of the history too. But I am open. Like, I always email me, anybody that wants to, if you have a tip. Again, some of the very best sources I have, the biggest help with any investigation. They're people, a lot of times you will never know their name, you will never see them on TV. I heard Will, another guy that's on our I team, he was talking to someone who's like, man, I don't know who he was talking. He's like, we just don't know unless someone tells us. Like a lot of time, I mean, we only know what we can uncover, and if there is information, or something, like that's probably the one of them, and you want it out there but don't want your name. Like, that's one of the most helpful things anyone can do with you know an investigation, if you're interested in exposing something, or you feel like something's just wrong and needs to be fixed, or like, why is this way, and you see it on a daily basis. And those are the people that are probably the most helpful. And we it takes us, like, I've been here for 10 years now. Mara's been here even longer. Will's a couple of years. You don't grow sources or have sources um, without having trust, and we've been able to get that over the years reporting here. Unlike network news, they'll cover like maybe a plane crash and they blow into like, say if that happened in Augusta, they come in Augusta, they do these interviews, they blow out. Let me tell you, I live here. My kid goes to school here. It is sometimes weird, I'm in the grocery store and someone's like, why'd you report this? And you got to defend yourself. So we truly try to get everything as accurate and as right and all sides. Cause I used to back in the day think things as, black and white. And a lot of times there's a lot of gray area because you really need to understand history and backstory. But anyway, yeah, we really, aim to make a positive difference in this community. The reason why we're all here is to do that. This is our home. Meredith and I are raising daughters in this community. I have a house here. I mean, I love it. And just want to, see, make a positive difference. And, the trust thing is so important. And I do feel like I have that, with a good part of the community. And it's taken years to build, but it is because like we truly aim to be as accurate and as truthful as possible. Sometimes there might be a little slip up, but it's never intentional. A lot of times, that's just like we don't know what we don't know, try our best to figure it all out.
If somebody has something that they have serious suspicions about and they've got some evidence and they want to reach out to you, how do they do that?
You can send me an email. So it's Liz Owens, Owens at wrdw.com. And you can also you can call me. I will say I'm really like, yeah, I'm more of a texter. I get so many phone calls. So like, it's be like, hey, I got this. And then I'll call you. But it's 803-624-9221.
Okay. Thank you so much for
Thank you for
sharing
having
your.
me on, and thank you for doing what you do. I really appreciate it and enjoy your podcast. So
Thank you. Thank you so much. We wish you the best. We'll be on the lookout for more stories. Sounds like the Tyrique Robinson matter may not be over yet. There may be some other things for us to look out for. So we'll be doing that as well as following the other I-team reports because, like you said, there has to be somebody that's watchdogging on our behalf.
thank
All
you.
right.
All right, you take care. Have a great day.